Good evening, Abimbola. I started recording this, and then a call came in, and then everything I've been saying for the last God knows how long was deleted. So I'll start all over again. I was describing the difference between the dating and courting. Dating basically is the understanding of the fact that you and the other person, or two people of the opposite sex, I want to believe. I personally am not of the opinion that two guys or two ladies can get into a relationship towards marriage. I believe that is absolutely unbiblical. That being said, two people of the opposite sex that are, I like each other, and they think there is something about that likeness that could even lead all the way to marriage. They decide to become special friends. They could have been friends before, and then that friendship just grows to another level whereby they become more committed to each other, more vulnerable to each other, more open to each other. They communicate more. They share their life plans. They share their life goals. They are more or less plain lovers, in a manner of speaking. You're trying to show the other person that you really genuinely love him, or her, as the case may be, and vice versa. So they do that in all sorts of ways. Go out together. They call it dates. They could go visit each other. She could come to your place. You could go to her place. All of this kind of stuff. And there's a whole lot of different extents to which people take that. Some are even willing to go all the way and even start having sex at that point. Whatever works for them. But it's a trial. It's an experiment. So that's why it's called a dating. It's an experiment in the sense that you're trying to see that, okay, the more I stay with this person, do I feel convinced that this can lead to marriage? Do I feel convinced that I can actually marry this person? And when you get to that point of that conviction where you really do feel like this can lead to marriage and I can marry this person, then you, as the guy, you pop the question. Or as a lady, a guy asks you out, like proper, ask you to marry him. And most times they expect an on-the-spot answer, because they believe for the past 6 months or 6 years, as the case may be, you've been dating. So you should have known if you really, really want this. So that's what dating looks like. The other alternative, which is more Christian, according to your personal choice of words in your question, and I actually agree with you, I think it's more Christian, is that rather than playing the experiment of let's see, can this work out? I love you, you love me. Okay, let's go out. Let's be friends. Let's love each other. Let's probably even do things that lovers do, and all those kind of stuff. And then eventually, maybe you progressively get to understand that, no, I don't think I want to spend the rest of my life with this person. And so somebody calls it off, and then the relationship is broken. And not only the relationship, hearts are broken, especially if there have been commitments in terms of being physically intimate and all that. You'd be like, oh my God, you just slept with me for fun, and all that. There are things you can't get back. So at the end of the day, there are broken hearts and a broken relationship, basically. But for courtship is such that as a person, as a Christian brother, a Christian sister, I don't even know if you're a guy or a girl, you just know your name is Abimbola. But as a Christian young person, you know that God has got a plan for you marriage-wise, just like he's got a plan for you in every other area of your life. And you're like, okay, I want to, by virtue of the fact that I already have a relationship with God, I want God to be the one to direct me in this area. I don't just want to walk up to someone because I like him or I like her and then get into a relationship with that person, be it on a trial basis or not. What I want about marriage is that I want God to be the one to make me know, in a manner of speaking, that this is the person I want you to marry. And when I know that this is the person that I really want to marry, if I'm a guy, then I go to the person and I make my plans known, make my intention known. I'm not asking you to date me. I'm not asking you to start letting us go out. Of course, we could have been friends before. We might never have even met before, but I'm just coming from the perspective of I feel convinced that you're the one for me. And so I'm coming to tell you. And if you're the lady, a guy comes to you and says all those kind of stuff, I feel like you're the one that I want to work the rest of my life with, da, 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 da. And, sometimes they use their Christian language to also quote that and make it look more Christianly. And then at the end of the day, he is not expecting an instant response from you, because of course you've not had an ongoing relationship. There's no dating that has preceded this, so he leaves you as a lady. I don't know if you're a lady, but he leaves the lady to take some time to also go and weigh that out, and pray and try to also seek God's face, because of course there's also that silent assumption that the two of you are Christians. And so the lady too goes, she prays, she asks God, God, is this the man that you want me to marry? And when she feels truly and fully persuaded that that's the guy, then she comes back to the man and says, yes, I'm ready. I'm not saying yes to a relationship in terms of dating. I'm saying, yes, I'll marry you. Or if she believes the person is not the one, then she comes back and she says, no, I don't feel truly and fully persuaded that I should go ahead in this relationship that is heading towards marriage. So yeah, those are the two dimensions. The thing is, okay, you said it would be nice if I could shed more light on the pattern a godly relationship should follow. I think a godly relationship looks more like the second option. That doesn't necessarily mean that every time that someone is truly and fully convinced that God is leading him to a particular sister, and he goes and he meets that sister, and the sister goes to pray and she receives a confirmation, and the two of them come together and they say yes, and the relationship begins, that doesn't guarantee that the relationship is going to work, because a relationship transcends the fact that God is leading two quote and unquote right people to each other to go ahead into a journey. But I think it is very, very reasonable for me as a person to know that I cannot know myself enough as much as the person that made me. And since marriage is a deep, long journey, deep and long, deep in the sense that there is a whole lot of mystery attached to it. There are so many things you can explain. Solomon was describing in the book of Proverbs how that there are few things you can't give expression to. He finds them to be mysterious, and one of them is the way of a man with a woman. In other words, this whole guy girl thing, it's too deep for us to reason out by psychology or reason out by what people say in terms of, okay, this is what happened to Mr. A and Mr. B, or brother A and sister B. It goes beyond all of that. The more you see people that have been married for long, the more you get to hear things like this from them. So yeah, I know that if I'm going into something that is that deep, something that is going to be that long, something that is going to be that complex, then I want to do it the best way possible. And I think the only reasonable way for me as a Christian is that I have a God that knows me more than I know myself. I know the things that I like, but God knows the things that are best for me. And so I leave that aspect of my life to Him, for Him to progressively bring me to the awareness of the person He wants me to marry. And then I approach that person. The way God works it out, he also works on the other person to come to that same understanding, if indeed He is the one working all this out. For God Himself is not an author of confusion, for in Him there is no variableness, no shadow of turning. And so if He does that, if He could bring you to that awareness, bring the other person to that awareness, bring the two of you together, that relationship is called a courtship until the time that you get to marry. So what people do in dating, you are doing yours in the godlified, to borrow that word, or to create the word godlified environment of commitment and accountability, because now you know you're not just doing something because you are doing an experiment to see if it's going to work out. Right from the day she said yes, it's already more or less a marriage in a sense. It's called a betrothal. That's why it was difficult for Joseph, the father, or quote and unquote, the father of Jesus, to leave Mary when she became quote and unquote pregnant before before they had even been married. But because they've been betrothed, they've met each other's families. They already know that this relationship they are in, this courtship they are in, is going to end in marriage. It's almost as good as being married, except that you've not been joined together in a manner of speaking. And of course, sex is out of the bounds. In fact, anything that could lead to that, as much as possible, is advisable you flee from it if you're talking in a godlified context. So yeah, that's basically the scope of what it looks like. And I think looking at my life, my journey personally, the person I'm married to, I mean, I'm a young married person. Young in the sense that my marriage is barely, it's just 12 months and about 4 months. So like, I've been married for just about 16 months, thereabouts, which is very, very small. But yet, even in that 6 months, which was preceded by over 4 years of courtship, I've come to understand that the person I married, or the person I got into a relationship with, which I eventually married, which was the very first person I will ask that kind of a question to, that will you marry me? I've never asked any other person that question before. But she's not the kind of person that if I was left to make my choice by myself, I couldn't have chosen her at the time when I did make that choice. But I did make that choice because I was very, very sure. Like it's not like I was always very sure, but there was this increasing progression of awareness that this is your wife. No matter how much you want to run away from the fact, this is the person you're going to marry. This is the person I want you to marry. And that is coming from God, not from me. And I could decipher that from the fact that I already had an ongoing relationship with God. So I know how He communicates with me. And that came so strongly. And there were oppositions from here and there, but gradually those oppositions made way and eventually became a reality. So yeah, I could look back today and say, wow, thank God I did what I did. Because if I were to make a choice by my desires, I would have chosen, I had so many other options I could have chosen from. But I won't be where I am today, and I won't be as satisfied as I am today. You might say I could never tell because I didn't get to exactly live that life to know if it was going to be sweet or not. But one thing that I know is that the life that I have now with the person that I have now is such that I could never have envisaged if I were to author the story of the possibilities of what a relationship with that person could translate into. As at the time I got into that relationship, I couldn't reason out something of such a sweet and bumpy experience that we've had so far. That's why we titled our book. The book is about our story, basically. That's why we titled it Bumpy But Sweet, because indeed it's not like it's all good, it's all rosy. It's been ups and downs, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's been very, very sweet. So that's the gist. That's the gist. I think that is what the godly relationship looks like. And for her, at the same time, I will be the first person she will be in a relationship with. Um, and yeah, it's working fine, and we believe that he that begun a good work will perfect it. So yeah, I think those are the differences. Of course, that is not to say dating doesn't work. It works for so many people. I mean, there are many people also that have been married for long and they feel fulfilled in their marriages, and they will tell you they started dating first, and then eventually their dating led to a point where they were so sure that the two of them are meant for each other, and they decided to take it to the next level. Fine if it works for them. But for me, I think in this particular area of my life, I would rather leave all my eggs in one basket and give that basket to God. And thank God, in doing that, looking back, I think it's paid out for me. So yeah, and that followed biblical examples. Yeah, right from the story of Adam and Eve, in which God Himself was the one that made Eve and brought Eve to Adam. And then we see again in the story of Genesis 24, the longest chapter in Genesis, the story of how Isaac got a wife. It's also full of the signature of the finger of God and how God could, do these things. It's not just, we don't leave it to chance. We don't leave it to experiment. We don't leave it to, let's test and see. There are many things you test, and after testing them, you won't get the original thing back. And neither will you be where you were when you were before you did your testing. So at the end of the day, uh, things are lost that couldn't be retrieved. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. God bless you.